Hey guys, can you hear me? My name's Amber. Welcome. We'll wait a minute, let some of y'all come on up. Welcome to my home studio. I'm going to show y'all how to do multi-plate lino cuts. I have some examples here. How to use multiple plates to get multiple layers and colors in your prints. Hello! So I wanted to do this demonstration because I am not super savvy with the computer, which I should be, but this is a way that you can get your transferable images without a computer or anything like that. So, oh hey everybody. All right, so we'll just get right into it. I'm gonna bring y'all down here to the workspace. Let's see. There we go. Can y'all see everything okay? All right. So for this, what you're gonna need is I use clear lay or transparency paper to transfer my key image onto a second plate. So you begin with your drawing, a piece of linoleum, you draw it out, carve it out until you have the key image like this. Once you have the key image, you ink it up and you put the clear layer or transparency paper over it, lift this up and use your second block to transfer that image on it. Now you can use tracing paper or any kind of paper really to make the transfer, but I prefer using the clear lay or the transparency paper because I like to reference back to it when I'm carving my second block. So you can always kind of see what your final product will look like. So once you're done printing it, you can always clean it off with just regular oil, cooking oil or whatever, and I degrease it with a simple green. So you can always reuse these pieces. Let me get some paper towels. I'll show you how easy this cleans up. So I can't really see y'all's questions very well at this angle, so I'm going to go back over it once I finish the initial printing process. So I'm going to show you, oh, here is that tiger print example. I started with my key. I drew it out, carved out everything that I wanted to be the top layer. And this is the transfer that I put on my second piece. So I'm going to show y'all how to, I carved out this little coffee press, French press, and I'm going to show y'all how to do that. So get yourself a piece of newsprint, and it's important to make sure that the transparency paper goes on top of your second block in exactly the same spot. So I like to draw myself a little reference registration for it. We're gonna ink this up with the same amount of ink that you would if you were going to go ahead and print it. Place it on our registration. And I like to use some tape for the transparency paper so that it doesn't move around. If I can find that. So lay it over it, and you can use a press, or if you're printing by hand, you can use a Baron or a wooden spoon. And you'll be able to see through the transparency paper if it's gotten on the inked surface. Okay. You see there? We're going to remove that. And this piece of linoleum, I've just gone over it with a red Sharpie so that you can see where you're carving. Put the same size linoleum right in there and lay that on top. And you can always check to make sure that it got down on it by holding it with one side, lifting it with the other, and we got it. So now you're ready to carve your second block. Let's see. Do y'all have any questions about this so far? So that's how you transfer the second block, and so y'all don't want to see me carve, we'll go ahead and start printing one of my other prepared plates. I always like to do my paper, my registration, trimming down on my paper before I get inky. So I've done that already. This is just a paper registration. What I do is I take the paper I'm going to be printing with, I trace it on a piece of newsprint. Make sure you label a T or something that you know where's the top. And I even put a little arrow to notch where I'm gonna start, what corner I'm gonna start laying my paper down in case they're slightly not their same size. So after I've traced my paper, I take my linoleum, my plate, and I trace it in the center. I find the center there. So you can always make multiple, you can make as many plates as you want to by using this method. You could ink transfer onto 5, 10, 20 blocks if you'd like. So that's a really nice way to get multiple colors and to go back in case you want to run a second edition of it or change the color of the edition as opposed to doing reductive printing. So that's kind of a benefit of doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and print some teapots for you guys. I already have my key image and my second plate carved. Do y'all have a color preference you want to see? Maybe red. Do some red. And yellow. Do a rainbow roll. What was the question? What's this art called? This is multi-plate lino cut. So I have this marked on my registration here. I use my right hand to hold the paper up when I lay it down when I'm hand printing, and I use my thumb and my index finger to use it kind of as a pivot to make sure it's lined up. And I'm going to print a couple of these second plates before I go over it with the key plate, just so it gives the ink a little bit of time to dry. Some more yellow. You be just a little louder. Oh, sorry if you can't hear me. I'm mumbling to my workspace. So right now I'm just printing the second plate that we transferred onto and carved out. You can always hold it down and take a peek. Make sure you got everything. All right, let's try this key image here. And the nice thing about this is once you have your key image, and let's say you make your second plate and you don't like the way it turned out, you took out too much linoleum, you carved out too much, or you want to do a different shape or a different pattern in the background, you can always transfer it onto another piece and do it that way. And when we're inking, we're looking for a nice sandpaper like texture to it. If you get it too thick, it'll go in your carved out spaces, your small details, and not enough, it won't transfer well. Clean up the edges. A really cool tip that I learned about if you have a space on your plate, your linoleum plate, and you keep carving out, but no matter what, you just keep getting a little bit of ink on it from the brayer, you can use baby powder just to kind of dab in the spaces. Pat Masterson taught me that. Make sure that lines up. All right, y'all. There you go. Whew, so glad that first one came out. Yeah, so also this helps if you do have a tricky time with registration and you are doing a reductive print. You print X amount of the prints in your first layer, and then you do your second layer and you lose a few. This way you can always go back in to get a more accurate edition. So thanks, guys. Let's see if we can make 2 in a row. So again, this is multi-plate printing, block printing, using transparency paper as your transfer method. Hola. Do you have any questions about this process or kind of what I'm doing? I happen to look up and under at the phone to see what y'all are saying. I missed the little thing, but pretty spot on, not too shabby. So I'm just gonna set y'all back a little bit so I can see what you guys are saying. First color is pretty much dry. Okay, yes, so the water-based inks I've been using the professional relief ink for my key image, and that is oil-based and water miscible, but I was using the water-based inks for my first color and they dry very quickly. So if I were to be doing a more detailed or a larger edition, I would use the professional inks, Speedball's professional inks for all of my colors and just give them a little while to dry. But since I was doing the water-based first, they dry really quickly. So you can get a good black on top of it or whatever kind of color you use on top. Let's see. Oh, my sound work. Yeah. It was the smoothest one, and I didn't have a spoon at the time, so it became my printing tool. What's this used for? What is what used for? The printing method? The paper I'm using right now is Stonehenge, and I've kind of been exploring a lot of their paper. They have a lot of different paper color variety. I also use Arnhem and really whatever I have on hand. So yeah, I can keep printing, and if y'all have any questions, ask away, and I'll look up and see what you got. To dry the first. You mean to dry this, or the first print with the second plate? Yes, it does need to be fairly dry, but that's why the water-based inks work well with that, because they dry pretty quickly. 2 different templates. I used, for this one, I just used the same for the different colors. Yes, so this is the two plates for the 2 colors. These are the 2 plates I've been using. And I transferred this image to my second plate by using transparency paper like this. Yes, they do send, Speedball does send ink to Latin America. And you can always send an email to Speedball. They're the ones whose products I'm using right now, and they'll be able to answer your questions about shipping. Yeah. I have, but I can show you again. If y'all want to see how the transfer method works again, I can show you. Giving myself some space here. Let's see. So you would want to start out, I'm going to show you how to do this method again for those who missed earlier. Yeah. Okay. So I have this other piece of linoleum. It's not the same size. If I were to do this, I would use the same size linoleum, although it's not necessary as long as it is placed in the same position. I have my little registration for it here. So I outline, once I have my image drawn and carved out, my key image here, I'm ready to transfer it onto my second plate. So once I have this, I can ink it up. Just an even, thin inking works just fine. Put that here. Let me start with the clean piece to show you. I'm just using oil to clean this off, so you can use it over and over again, and a little bit of simple green to degrease it. Make sure that's dry. And so once I have, this is any kind of transfer paper, happens to be clear lay, and I was saying earlier I like using this kind of clear lay film paper, because any kind of tracing paper or other paper, it gets a little thin and can crinkle up when you're making the transfer. I also like to use this as a reference to my second plate. So once I have this on my registration, I use tape to hold it down so that it doesn't move. I lay it over here. And I press. You can use a Baron or a wooden spoon, or as Mike said, a salad fork, which is what I'm using, works just fine. Or you can use a printing press. Give it a good rub and you can check to make sure it transferred. Like this. Now remove this and you're going to put your other piece of linoleum. This one's not the same size, but for demonstration purposes, lay that right on top of it. Get your wooden salad fork and just rub it like you were doing a hand print, a standard hand print. Make sure you got all the edges. And there you go. So let's pretend like this is the same size, but this is essentially what you get. All right. What kind of oil? Any kind of canola oil, vegetable oil. It doesn't really, whatever you have in your pantry is fine. Avocado oil. And I like to hold on to this because once I start carving my second plate, I like to use it as a reference to see what my finished image is going to look like. So at this point, what we would do is we would carve out everything that you want to be the white of your paper, or whatever you want the paper color to be, you would carve out of this second block. So this was my key image for my teapot. I transferred it onto a second plate, and then I carved out everything that I wanted to be the white of the paper. You print your first layer, that second block you made, you print that first, so you get your color down. So then you can put your key image on top of it. Let's see. Which product I can delay its drying. So let me show you. So for the block printing, Speedball has a block printing medium. It's retarder and it'll slow your drying time. You can also use the professional ink series, which is water-based and oil mistable, and this will not dry near as quickly. And I typically use these for most of my prints, but since these are small, quick ones, I'll use just the water-based one. Yes, you can use a Sharpie to coat your plate if you want to see the contrast, or you can just carve it straight from the linoleum. So once you have this transferred onto your second plate, you'll get your carving tools. And they have tips that you carve your image out. Yeah, no problem. If y'all have any other questions about this process, I can show it again if you would like, if any of y'all are new to the video. Looks like a mess right here right now, I suppose. Thank you so much. Not gonna lie, I was nervous that first one wasn't gonna show up, but it did, so. Let me see. Okay, let's see. Y'all wanna see it again? Tips on registration. So, registration is just always making sure, here, I'll bring y'all back down to the workspace. Is just always making sure that your paper, like I showed y'all, I make a little arrow to show where I lay the paper down every single time. So if the paper's slightly larger or smaller, I always start in this corner. Do you clean your blocks after you print? You know, honestly, I don't often clean my plates after I print. Sometimes I will run them through the press, or I'll just get off the excess ink with a piece of newsprint and just kind of create a few ghost prints. If I do clean them, I'll use a little bit of simple green. So for the Speedy Carve, you can immerse it all the way into water, but I use a lot of the Battleship Gray, and these cannot be submerged in water. They'll warp and bend up and stuff, so, but if I do, I'll use the simple green. But like this one, it's pretty dry, and I just did a bunch of ghost prints. Like, that means once it's been inked on your paper, you just get newsprint or scrap paper and print it again. Do you have a press machine? So you can order these plates on Dick Blick. I live in Texas. We have a Texas Art Supply. You can order them. There's a bunch of different websites. If you look up Battleship Gray linoleum printing blocks, then you'll be able to find them. Yes, I do have a press. This is my press. Right here, it's Conrad monotype printing press. Do y'all have any other questions for me about this printing technique? I might be doing another one soon. I'll talk to Speedball about it, and if I do, I'll post it up and let y'all know about it. But either way, thank you guys for joining me. It was nice to have y'all here, and y'all stay safe. And if you have any other questions, you can send me a direct message at Amber Kaiser Studios, or you can always send a message to Speedball Art Account and they'll be able to answer you. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see y'all soon. Let's see, it's a big one. Oh no, it's good. Yeah, I'll see y'all later, all right? Thanks guys.